Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, we're going to react to the 5 creepiest sounds of war ever recorded. I mean, going to war, like I've never been in the military, but it just must be almost like sensory overload, especially if like you're in a battlefield situation, just the sounds of the bullets whizzing past, explosions, yelling, the sounds potentially of fighter jets zooming overhead. It's just got to be an unreal scenario, like completely different to anything a civilian will ever go through. Even if you're playing Call of Duty, it's just not the same.
V-1 buzz bomb. The V-1 flying bomb was an early cruise missile developed by the German Third Reich Luftwaffe, its air force, created under a project codenamed Cherry Stone as part of a weapon series aptly titled Vengeance Weapons, or V-Weapons. These were intended for strategic terror bombings to instill fear in the hearts of civilians. The V-1s were launched towards the UK in spots where Allied forces grouped starting in 1942. During the height of the war, around 100 of these terrifying planes were being deployed per day towards England. The V-1 was powered by an Argus pulse jet engine, the only mass-produced manned aircraft to use such a system, that pulsed 50 times per second and generated an ominous noise, a terrifying buzzing that colloquially baptized the V-1 the buzz bomb or the doodle bug.
Wasp. Yeah, it's like a wasp's nest or like a chainsaw.
This sound caused considerable psychological distress, as targets could hear the noise but not know where the bombs would land, especially when several V-1s were simultaneously present. Due to the short range of the engine type, most of the V-1 flying bombs headed to the UK needed to be launched from neighboring France or the coastal regions of the Netherlands. By the end of the war, over 10,000 V-1s had been launched towards Britain at speeds up to 400 miles per hour, 640 kilometers per hour, and at altitudes up to 3,000 feet. These attacks decreased as the Allies took back the launching ports from the Third Reich, ending attacks on the English in 1944. Among countermeasures was the use of Hawker Tempests to intercept the bombs. Rather than shooting the V-1s and risking a mid-air explosion, the planes would approach within 6 inches, 15 centimeters, to induce an aerodynamic flip. The difference in air pressure above the plane's wing would disrupt the airflow over the V-1 surface and send it crashing before it reached a populated area. The last V-1 launching port was reclaimed by the Allies in March of 1945 in the Low Countries.
Man, yeah, that buzzing sound is creepy.
Operation Wandering Soul. Operation Wandering Soul was a U.S. propaganda and psychological warfare campaign against the Viet Cong launched during the Vietnam War. The operation was inspired by Project Ghost Army, a tactic used in World War II by the Allied forces where they would play recordings of moving Sherman tanks so that the Wehrmacht would be fooled into believing that more tanks were present than there actually were.
No way. Operation
Wandering Soul was developed by the 6th Psychological Operations Battalion, or 6th PSYOP, of the U.S. The Navy was charged with the actual execution.
Wow, I did not know that there were like specific departments for, psychological, operations. I had no clue.
Mounted on swift boats and helicopters, U.S. soldiers broadcast an unsettling soundtrack titled Ghost Tape Number 10, with supernatural sounds, funeral music, mournful wailing, and altered voices from the afterlife. The imagined ghosts implored the Viet Cong soldiers to surrender and go home, lest their souls meet a similar fate.
Jesus.
South Vietnamese participants helped the U.S. record haunting messages such as, quote, "Don't end up like me. Go home, friends, before it's too late."
What? Dude. Could you imagine hearing that for hours on end at night? Oh my God, nightmare fuel.
The recording sought to exploit the Vietnamese beliefs about death and spirituality by instilling fear that the souls of the lost soldiers were now aimlessly wandering the jungle. This targeted the belief that the dead must be buried in their homes, surrounded by friends and family, or bad fortune will follow, and that the deceased must be buried properly in their homeland, or their soul will wander aimlessly. While the United States might have successfully spooked some members of the Viet Cong, it's difficult to address the effects of the campaign, since those who responded to the recording usually met enemy fire. In some cases, the Vietnamese recognized the hoax for what it was and actually shot in the direction of helicopters and boats carrying the speakers. Jericho Trumpets. Mounted on the U-87B dive bomber, Jericho Trumpets were the propaganda symbol of German air might. The U-87B dive bomber, also known as Stuka, was being produced at a rate of 60 a month, making a total of 336 planes by the time the Second World War broke.
Wow, 60 planes a month. That's 2 planes a day. I mean, I guess if you've got the whole country working towards this, it's not. But with technology back then?
The propeller-driven sirens on the U-87B had a diameter of 2.3 feet, 0.7 meters, and produced a piercing wail that was used to pummel enemy morale and enhance the intimidation of bombing runs, despite creating 20 miles per hour, 25 kilometers per hour of drag. Alternatively, some bombs themselves had an attached whistle that would sound upon release, terrifying those below.
Oh, is it the one that would go... Wow. Is it that one?
Whether the idea of including these trumpets came from Luftwaffe Colonel General Udet or from Hitler himself. The U-87B played a crucial role in the successes of the Blitzkrieg warfare, whereby the Germans launched rapid attacks from a densely packed line of combined infantry and air support to create gaps in their enemy's lines of defense and complicate any defense with a constantly altered war front. These trumpets became a symbol of terror for opponents of the Third Reich regime, intimidating as any war cry may be. Especially horrific was hearing these planes approach towns or cities packed with civilians. As the planes launched their strike, falling like lightning from the sky, this is what people heard.
Fuck that. Oh my god. Almost sounds like a Formula One car, like a little bit. There's a slight resemblance to the...
The death whistles were named after the conquest of Canaan during the biblical Battle of Jericho, recorded in the book of Joshua, detailing how Israelites blew triumphant trumpets around Canaan after bringing the walls of the city down. The Third Reich used the clamor of the Jericho trumpets much like some kings of Judah had used the story of the original battle as propaganda. The downside of these horrific trumpets was that they slowed the planes down, making them less mighty in the face of modern Allied aircraft. After the Battle of Britain in 1940, around 20% of the total U-87Bs had been destroyed, and the fear inspired by its trumpets had been replaced with a better understanding of how to defeat the planes. Atomic bomb.
The Big Daddy.
Curiously, survivors from near the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bomb hypocenters did not note hearing the explosions. John Hersey's 1946 report for The New Yorker stated that there was a, quote, noiseless flash. Those further away, however, recalled being hit by a tremendous crack as the air expanded, followed by a groan from the earth that reverberated through their bones. A then third grader who saw the bomb explode, Kimura Yoshiro, said the following, quote, "Everything turned yellow. It was like I'd looked right at the sun. Then there was a big sound a second or two later, and everything went dark. The sound, like a cannon going off, reaches those at a safe distance far later than the site of the explosion. This seemingly disjointed experience happens because light travels faster than..."
Look at that. Look at this. The horizon. Everything just flat. Everything has just been reduced to like rubble for miles, you know. You can see buildings there, but even these ones look like they've sustained damage. Like everything here is just flattened.
And anyone close enough to hear an explosion at the exact time it happens would theoretically be obliterated by the blast. High-quality recordings of nuclear explosions with sound are a rare find. This unedited audio from the Upshot Knothole Annie test is one of the only few publicly available of such an event, recorded in 1953 at the Nevada test site. The 16-kiloton atmospheric burst was broadcast nationally on live TV. It's said that about
Did any of you guys see Oppenheimer, the movie? What did you guys think? I thought it was really good. My one criticism, I wish that they made the explosion a bit more, I don't know, bigger. Like, yeah, I just feel like the explosion, because they built it up so much, I feel like I was slightly underwhelmed with the explosion. Let me know if you guys agree.
following the Hiroshima and Nagasaki explosions, the air was again cut by thunder that instead signaled a thick, black rain. Hitler's voice. Finally, the fifth creepiest sound of war is one that disturbs and chills hearts for its scarcity. In 1942, Adolf Hitler's natural speaking voice was secretly recorded during a private conversation in a railcar. It's one of the only recordings in existence of the Führer using his normal, non-shouting voice. Hitler's visit with Finland's General Carl Gustav Emil Mannerheim happened in secret. Hitler entered Finland with the excuse of congratulating Mannerheim for his birthday. Mannerheim received him at Imatra, not wanting to turn the visit into anything resembling an official state event. At the German's personal train, a sound engineer named Thor Dahmen was tasked with recording Hitler's official birthday message. Once that was done, he bravely continued to record for 11 minutes, until the Führer's SS guards became aware that the microphone was still on. They subtly threatened Dahmen and ordered the destruction of the tape. Instead, the tape was turned over to the Kustavikuuna, the state's censorship office, and was made public a couple of years after 1957.
Wow.
At the meeting, Hitler launched into a rambling monologue where he expressed frank concerns about having underestimated the USSR's military mobilization and marveled at the country's crazy and immense armament of 35,000 tanks. He says of the USSR what many around the world had begun thinking of him, quote,
Can you imagine 35,000 tanks? Could you imagine looking at that? Like, how much space would 35,000 tanks take up? How many football fields is that? We're probably talking, you could probably fit maybe 100 tanks in a football field. 35,000, that's insane. That's 350 football fields.
We know ourselves just how monstrous this powerful beast was. This is what his tranquil, chilling voice sounded like when it was away from the podiums and microphones.
Ich habe so bedauert, dass wir vor 2 Jahren dem finnischen Volk im ersten Freiheitskampf nicht helfen konnten. Aber es war nicht möglich, wir sind im Westen gebunden. Und ein Zweifrontenkrieg ist nicht durchführbar. Und ich bin sehr glücklich, dass wir jetzt zum zweiten Mal, ich hoffe dieses Mal endgültig, den Kampf gegen einen Gegner durchführen, der, wenn er siegen würde, nicht.
Creepy.
It was rumored that during the meeting, Mannerheim refused Hitler's request for Finland's help against the USSR after deducing Hitler's weak position by lighting a cigar and receiving no rebuke, in spite of the Führer's widely known objection to smoking.
Wow, man. Interesting video, you know. Like, I guess a lesson is, you know, those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. Just the way things are, you know, right now, it just feels like the world is on kind of like a precipice. It feels like there's forces that are pushing us in the direction of war when we don't need to be going in that direction. Like, we should be doing everything, you know, for peace. Like, because war war is evil. Like, the sound of the V1 buzz bomb, that was just so creepy. That buzzing sound, it's like a wasp of, like a, you know, a bunch of wasps heading right at you. Imagine hearing that for days and days and days on end. Yeah, that would not be good for the psyche. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.